Ever wondered what secrets lie behind the legendary ancient battles that shaped civilizations? Who were all the fearless leaders who defied the odds and triumphed against all odds? What strategies and tactics paved the way for victory in the face of overwhelming odds? Join us on a thrilling journey through time as we uncover the untold stories of courage, betrayal, and sacrifice that echo through the ages through the largest ancient battles in history. In the summer heat of 479 BCE, near the plains of Plataea in Boeotia, two formidable adversaries converged, setting the stage for a momentous clash that would resonate through the annals of history. On one side stood the expansive might of the Persian Empire, led by Xerxes I, whose ambitions had surged through Greece, claiming victories at Thermopylae and Artemisium. Yet the indomitable spirit of the Greek city-states, united in their resolve to defend their homeland, stood as an unwavering bulwark against the tide of conquest. The Persian retreat after the naval defeat at Salamis left Mardonius, Xerxes' trusted general, to consolidate their grip on Greece from the fortified position near Plataea. The stalemate ensued with Greek forces under the leadership of Spartan commander Pausanias, refusing to yield to the Persians' beckoning challenge in the open terrain. Pausanias' strategy was one of patience and calculated defense, leveraging the rugged terrain to nullify the Persian cavalry's advantage, and conserving their strength while disrupting the enemy's supply lines. As tensions mounted and the Persians sensed an opportunity in the perceived Greek retreat, they launched a decisive attack, falling into the carefully laid trap. The Greek forces swiftly regrouped, unleashing a relentless counteroffensive that shattered the Persian lines. The ferocity of the Spartan, Tegean, and Athenian warriors, clad in their formidable hoplite armor, overwhelmed the ill-prepared Persian infantry, leading to Mardonius' demise and the collapse of Persian ambitions in Greece. The aftermath of the Battle of Plataea marked a turning point in the Greco-Persian Wars, with a decisive victory emboldening the Greek allies to seize the initiative and take the offensive against the Persians. Though overshadowed by the fame of Marathon and Thermopylae, Plataea's significance lay in its demonstration of strategic brilliance and resilience, immortalized in the Serpent Column at Delphi. Picture the vast plains of Gaul in 451 CE, a landscape soon to be scarred by one of history's most dramatic and decisive battles. The Battle of the Catalaunian Fields, also known as the Battle of Chalons, was set to determine the fate of Western Europe. At the heart of the Roman defense was Flavius Aetius, the last great Roman general. His army was a patchwork of alliances, including Visigoths, Alans, and other tribes. Among his most crucial allies was Theodoric, the Visigothic king, whose forces bolstered the Roman ranks. Opposing them was Attila the Hun, a name that struck fear across continents. His fearsome horde included Ostrogoths, Gepids, and other warrior bands. The stage was set near the Marne River in the Champagne region of Gaul. Attila, ever the strategist, positioned his troops in a broad formation, his headquarters centrally placed but ready to strike from any angle. His tactics relied on mobility and the shock of a sudden overwhelming force. His warriors would fire arrows to disrupt enemy formations before charging in to decimate the survivors. Nets were used to entangle and immobilize forces, ensuring that they couldn't flee or regroup. As the battle commenced, Aetius demonstrated his strategic acumen. He placed his weakest forces, the Alans, in the center, baiting Attila into focusing his assault there. On the flanks, the more robust Roman and Visigoth forces were ready to execute a double envelopment, a classic pincer move designed to cut off Attila's escape and surround his forces. The clash was brutal. Attila's horsemen surged forward, their arrows darkening the sky before they crashed into the Alan center. However, the Romans and Visigoths on the flanks held their ground, slowly tightening their grip around the Hunnic forces. Theodoric, fighting valiantly, fell in battle, but his death only galvanized the Visigoths to fight harder. The Huns, despite their ferocity, were driven back. At the day's end, Attila found himself in a precarious position. His forces were battered, and retreat seemed the only viable option. He withdrew to his camp, a temporary reprieve from annihilation. The Roman and Visigoth forces, though victorious, were too exhausted to press the attack immediately. The Battle of the Catalaunian Fields was not a definitive Roman victory in the classical sense, but it marked a critical halt to the Hunnic advance into Western Europe. Attila retreated, his ambitions of conquering Gaul thwarted. This battle preserved much of the European culture and delayed the fall of the Western Roman Empire. From the blood-soaked fields of Gaul to the turbulent waters of the Yangtze River, history is punctuated by battles that shaped the destiny of empires. As the dust settled on the Catalonian fields, another decisive confrontation was brewing in the east. The Battle of Red Cliffs in 208 CE, a clash that would alter the fate of China. The Eastern Han dynasty was in decline, weakened by internal strife and external threats. Amidst this chaos, powerful warlords emerged, vying for control. Among them was Cao Cao, whose ambition to unify China under his rule set the stage for a monumental conflict. Opposing him were Liu Bei and Sun Quan, who formed a strategic alliance to defend their southern territories. Cao Cao's massive forces of 220,000 men, primarily land-based soldiers, inexperienced in naval warfare, marched southward. Disease and exhaustion plagued his troops, diminishing their effectiveness. In contrast, the allied forces of Liu Bei and Sun Quan, numbering around 50,000, were well versed in the art of riverine combat, eager to defend their homeland. The two sides clashed along the Yangtze River, with initial skirmishes and strategic maneuvers failing to give either side a definitive advantage. Cao Cao's attempt to establish a bridgehead across the river were thwarted, forcing both armies into a standoff on opposite banks. The turning point came through a brilliant and deceptive strategy devised by Huang Gai, a commander of the allied forces. Huang Gai feigned defection, offering his fleet to Cao Cao. Trusting the ruse, Cao Cao welcomed him, unaware that the boats were filled with flammable materials. As the fire ships approached, they were ignited, setting Cao Cao's fleet ablaze. The ensuing inferno wrought havoc, throwing his forces into disarray. Seizing the moment, the Allies launched a coordinated land and naval assault. The fire decimated Cao Cao's fleet, and the marshy terrain hampered his soldiers' movements, preventing an effective counterattack. Cao Cao was forced to retreat north, leaving many of his men to perish. Zhao Yu and Zhuge Liang, the brilliant minds behind the Allied strategies, demonstrated the power of leveraging an enemy's weaknesses. Their tactics at Red Cliffs are studied to this day. As the fire of Red Cliffs died down, the echoes of the battle resonated through history, a testament to the decisive impact of strategy and alliance in shaping the fate of nations. From the smoldering wreckage of Cao Cao's fleet at Red Cliffs to the strategic ravines of Britain, the art of warfare has repeatedly turned the tide of history. As the echoes of ancient Chinese tactics faded, another battle loomed large in 61 CE, one that would define the future of Roman Britain, the Battle of Watling Street. This battle was the climactic end to Boudicca's revolt against the Roman Empire, a fierce uprising sparked by the brutal treatment of the Iceni queen and her daughters. After the Roman governor, Catus Decianus, confiscated the lands of Boudicca's late husband, King Prasutagus, and subjected her to public floggings and her daughters to rape, the flames of rebellion were ignited across Britain. Gaius Suetonius Paulinus, the Roman governor, faced a formidable challenge. The combined forces of Boudicca's Iceni tribe and other allied Britons vastly outnumbered his legion. Yet the Roman soldiers, though fewer, were battle-hardened and disciplined. Suetonius chose his battleground wisely along Watling Street, utilizing natural terrain to his advantage. The Roman legions took up a defensive position with a ravine and wooded hills shielding their flanks and rear, forcing the Britons to attack head-on. Suetonius formed his men into a wedge-shaped formation, designed to cut through the disorganized ranks of Boudicca's forces. As the Britons charged, the Roman soldiers unleashed volleys of javelins, wreaking havoc and breaking the momentum of the attackers. The disciplined Romans held their lines against the frenzied but poorly armed Britons. Cavalry units on the flanks further destabilized the British forces, striking from the sides and rear. The result was devastating. Estimates suggest around 80,000 Britons were slain, compared to a mere 400 Romans. The crushing defeat ended Boudicca's rebellion and solidified Roman control over southern Britain, a dominance that would last until 410 CE. Boudicca, the indomitable queen, did not survive long after the battle, with some accounts claiming she took her own life to avoid capture. From the disciplined formations at Watling Street to the intricate maneuvers along China's Fei River, the art of warfare continued to shape empires and decide fates. Following the crushing defeat of Boudicca's forces led by the Romans, we now turn to another epochal battle, one that would echo through Chinese history, the Battle of Fei River in 383 CE. In this tumultuous era, the Jin dynasty stood as the established power in southern China, while another ambitious former Xin, led by Fu Jian, sought to dominate the entire realm. Determined to crush the Jin and unify China under his rule, Fu Jian amassed an immense army and prepared for a decisive invasion. By August of 383 CE, Fu Jian's brother Fu Rong advanced with an initial force of 300,000 men, setting the stage for a monumental clash. Fu Jian soon followed with reinforcements, swelling the Xin ranks to an estimated 800,000. In stark contrast, the Jin forces, led by the astute general Huan Chang, numbered only 100,000. Despite being outnumbered, the Jin soldiers were well-trained and well-equipped, a professional army facing a mass of conscripts. The battle unfolded with the Xin forces initially gaining ground in skirmishes. However, the sheer size of Fu Jian's army became a disadvantage, leading to logistical chaos and communication breakdowns. Huan Chang, seizing this critical vulnerability, executed a masterstroke of strategy. Positioned defensively, the Jin army utilized the Fei River as a natural barrier. As the Xin forces attempted to cross, Huan Chang orchestrated a feigned retreat. This maneuver sowed confusion among the already unwieldy Xin ranks, causing disorder and panic. As Fu Jian's troops faltered, the Jin forces launched a counterattack, taking full advantage of their disarray. The battle reached its climax with the death of Fu Rong, a critical blow that further demoralized the Xin army. The Jin forces, exploiting the chaos, routed the Xin troops in a spectacularly lopsided victory. The river that was meant to be an obstacle for the Jin became the stage for their triumph. This victory, one of the most remarkable in military history, underscored the importance of strategy, discipline, and the effective use of terrain. Continuing our journey through the annals of history, we transition from the Jin dynasty's triumph at the Battle of Fei River to the pivotal clash of ancient Rome, the Battle of Philippi in 42 BCE. This momentous event marked the culmination of the power struggle following the assassination of Julius Caesar, reshaping the destiny of the Roman Republic. In the aftermath of Caesar's death, Rome plunged into a civil war between his avengers and his assassins. The triumvirate, Mark Antony, Octavian, and Marcus Lepidus, sought retribution for Caesar's murder and aimed to consolidate their authority. Opposing them were Brutus and Cassius, the architects of Caesar's demise, who controlled the eastern provinces with formidable allies like Ptolemaic Egypt and the Parthian Empire. The Battle of Philippi unfolded in two major engagements near the city of Philippi in Macedonia. Initially, Brutus and Cassius faced Antony and Octavian's combined might. While Brutus managed to repel Octavian's forces and breach his camp, Cassius suffered defeat against Antony. Cassius's mistaken belief in Brutus's failure led to his tragic suicide. Despite this setback, Brutus rallied the remaining troops. In the subsequent encounter, Brutus launched a decisive assault, aiming to break the deadlock. However, the geography of the battlefield, a narrow space hemmed in by marshland and mountains, limited maneuverability, favoring close quarters infantry combat. Ultimately, Brutus's forces were overwhelmed, lending to his own tragic end and the surrender of his remaining troops. The consequences of the Battle of Philippi reverberated throughout the Roman world. The triumvirate emerged victorious, solidifying their dominance and heralding the end of the Liberator's civil war. Octavian, later known as Augustus, ascended as the foremost leader, eventually establishing the Roman Empire. With the defeat of Brutus and Cassius, the last significant opposition to the triumvirate crumbled, marking the definitive demise of the Roman Republic. Brutus and Cassius employed different strategies in their fateful confrontation. Initially, Brutus favored a defensive stance, leveraging naval superiority for attrition. Cassius adopted a cautious approach, focusing on defensive preparations and countering flanking maneuvers by the triumvirate. However, pressure from their troops and changing battlefield circumstances forced them into a more aggressive engagement, ultimately leading to their downfall. Thus, the Battle of Philippi stands as a turning point in Roman history, heralding the transition from republic to empire under the leadership of Augustus, and marking the end of an era of political turbulence and civil strife. As we wrap up our journey through history, we invite you to hit that like button and subscribe for more thrilling tales. Now, we want to hear from you. Which battle captured your imagination the most? Leave a comment below with your favorite fight, and we'll see you next time.